This is part 3 of the Essential School Age IEP module. This presentation focuses on least restricted environment and testing. In Section 10 of the IEP, the General Factors section of the IEP, a third grade reading component was added. This component is for all students, grades K through 3. When No is selected, it prompts the writer to address the considerations in the student's profile section and/or in the present levels of performance section. The least restricted environment section requires a justification statement if a child receives services, including related services, anywhere other than in the general education setting with non-disabled peers. When students are removed from the general education classroom, districts must explain why the instruction cannot be delivered in the general education setting with non-disabled peers with access to accommodations and modifications. Please note that the presence of a disability alone is not a reason for removal. Statewide and district-wide testing. Section 12 addresses students who are provided accommodations on state and district level tests, and those who are taking the alternate assessment for students with a significant cognitive disability, AASCD. For those taking the alternate assessment, the IEP team must justify the decision of providing this type of assessment and fully explain how the conclusion to use alternate assessment was determined. The new IEP form has a link to the participation criteria form. For every student who is being considered for the alternate assessment, the participation criteria form should be completed in its entirety, answering all 3 questions with a yes or no response. The form lists what evidence the decision to participate is not based on. This list needs to be considered before determining the student will participate in the AASCD. All signatures, including district representatives, parents, guardians, general education teachers, and intervention specialists should be included. This documentation should accompany every IEP and should be discussed amongst the team whenever participation for alternate assessment is being considered. In the case where students will be participating in district and statewide assessments with accommodations, each accommodation will be specific and correspond with each test subject area. You need to note specific test or tests that the student will be taking and any differences in allowable accommodations that may be test-specific within the classroom across the district. If a student is receiving testing accommodations for English Language Arts ELA 2 in reading, you select ELA and then select Reading. In the assessment title column, type in ELA 2. Then, in the Detail of Accommodations column, describe the specific accommodations needed for reading. Section 13 has been added to document test exemptions. One area of exemption is the third grade reading guarantee. If the child has a significant cognitive disability, the child is not required to take the reading diagnostic assessment and is, therefore, removed from all provisions of the third grade reading guarantee, including retention. If the child does not have a significant cognitive disability, all data needs to be considered and the team needs to decide whether the child will be exempt from the retention provision of the third grade reading guarantee. See the third grade reading guarantee guidance manual on ODE's website for more information. For graduation tests in Section 13, the team is required to provide written justification of the IEP team's decision to excuse a student from testing requirements. Choose a category in the first column, then type in the course title in the second column. Add the justification for exemption in the third column. In addition to graduation tests, Section 13 allows the district to consider other assessment exemptions. This section is where you would document exemptions from assessments such as domains on the Ohio English Language Proficiency Assessment, OELPA, if applicable. Section 14 documents meeting participation. The form has a new drop-down menu which allows you to select your position title. The parent must be afforded the opportunity to participate. The school district is responsible to ensure that meetings are scheduled early enough so that all parties have the opportunity to attend at a mutually agreed upon place and time. In an attempt to ensure parental participation, the parent and school district may agree to some alternate means of participation, such as video conferencing or phone conferences. If alternate means are chosen, they must be documented as such. In some cases, members of the IEP team may be excused from attending the IEP meeting, in whole or in part, provided the school district and parent agree in writing prior to the meeting. The excused member must provide input into the development of the IEP in writing to the district and to the parent prior to the meeting. If this is an initial IEP meeting, the parent must sign to implement services. The parent must receive the PR-01 summarizing the events of the IEP meeting, along with a procedural safeguard notice prior to services beginning for the student. Districts need to remember that while an IEP is in effect for 364 days from the date signed, it is a living document and can and should be revised as necessary. Any member of the team may request an IEP meeting to revise. This can be done through the amendment process, which can be accomplished through a variety of methods. This process does not necessarily need to be a face-to-face meeting, but the parent does need to be involved. If the district proposes a change of placement for a student, the IEP team is required to meet to discuss the change of placement. The team needs to determine if this is in fact a change in the continuum of services for the child. A continuum of services ranges from instruction in general education, special education, special schools, home instruction, instruction in hospitals, and institutions. If the change in the student's services proposed does in fact change the student's placement on the continuum of services, the parent must give consent in writing for that placement to happen.